Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He succeeded. He won a mandate again, but it was basically back to where he was before the election was called. And he's got this new Omicron pandemic. So what does it look like in the year ahead for him?
I think the big question is, it'd be like, will he, won't he, might he step down? The thing is that he has won the greatest number of seats in 3 elections. He's giving a lot of latitude to ministers like Minister Freeland, right? And but so the thing is there's been increasing speculation about what his future is. It has nothing to do with what he has said or what he has done, but just speculation as to his level of enthusiasm in being prime minister, and also allowing some of his cabinet colleagues to take a higher profile. So I think that'll be the looming question in the Liberal tribe. What is the future of Justin Trudeau? That said, I firmly believe that his future is in his own hands. There won't be anything that happens that ousts him, but that if he decides that he'd like to move on, that'll be a decision that he'll make.
Interesting. Now, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole, we were just talking about, he's had a really interesting year.
Interesting,
and yeah. He went from, he's basically been on a roller coaster. Now he's dragging his party against some of the, there's some concern there for some of them that he's kind of moving the party. I guess I can say more center right. So he's had a heck of a year. Now, what does 2022 look like for Aaron O'Toole?
Well, on paper, it should be good on a number of fronts. First of all, the economy is probably going to be increasingly important, and the Conservatives are usually strong on that front. The other thing is that the Liberals have been in power for a number of years, and they haven't won the popular vote in the last 2 elections, so the Conservatives still have that in their favor. And I think the strategy for the Conservatives is not to move to the center, but move towards the center. They just have to move a little bit in order to attract those blue Liberals who might be fatigued with a very progressive Trudeau Liberal government. So, but when you look at O'Toole's personal brand, it was low going into the election. He built it up, and some of that capital has been lost. That capital that he built up during the election has been lost in the post-election period, as he's still been dealing with grumblings within his own party and the vaccination status and explanation of a number of caucus members. But I think his problem is with caucus. It's not a party problem. It's not a rank and file problem. I don't even think it's a Conservative voter problem. His problem is his caucus, because his caucus is much more right-wing than average Conservative voters, much more socially conservative than average Conservative voters. That's the circle. That's the circle that he's got to square.
So on that note, Nick, he avoided a leadership review vote, but it sounds like from what you're saying that he will continue to be fighting against some of his caucus members next year.
Oh, absolutely. I think he's got to put this vaccination thing to rest. Man, if he can't put it to rest, and let's face it, you don't need a poll to know that 85% of Canadians have received the vaccination. Like, come on, who do you want to vote for you, the 85% or 15%? And you know what? You don't need to be like a New York lawyer to figure out, I think maybe we should be going after the 85% of Canadians, whoever they happen to be, not the 15% who are vaccine hesitant.
No, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, it seems like his party is exactly where they've been for the past couple of years. Is that safe to say? Yeah,
not good, not bad, right? He's well positioned. I think for Jagmeet Singh, he's got to hope that the Liberals have a misstep, that they have a scandal, that something undermines the Liberal brand, and the New Democrats become the progressive alternative. Singh's personal brand is still pretty strong, so their hope has to be a Liberal misstep. Haven't seen that yet, but you know what? Don't underestimate the ability of governments to mess things up. And we'll see something happen in 2022 for sure. It'll be interesting to see who the beneficiary might be. Will it be Aaron O'Toole or Jagmeet Singh?
How about Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet? Is there any momentum behind him, or is it basically treading water?
Well, I think he's in a good spot because his numbers at least remain solid in the province of Quebec. And the thing is, I think for him, he's got to decide what he wants to try to deliver and advocate for in Quebec in the federal House of Commons in order for him to show some wins. So there's an upside for him, but he's got to see whether he can use any leverage to squeeze anything out of Quebec, out of the federal government, that is, for his home province that he represents.
We spent a lot of time discussing the Green Party, and they have an interim leader, Emina Kuttner. Do you think the Green Party will still be sort of a presence in Canadian politics, or do you think the past year has really kind of damaged that for Canadian voters?
Well, it definitely damaged it in the short term. It's going to be interesting to see what role that Kuttner wants to take. Will they want to be more proactive? Will they just be a caretaker leader? And what will their role be in the leadership race? Kuttner is the interim leader. I think for the Green Party, they've got to say that the past is the past, and let's erase that from the Green Party memory and focus on the future. And I think what Canadians are going to want to hear from the Greens is not only what their vision is for the country and the environment, because the environment is still the top national issue of concern, but how is the Green Party now more united than it was in the last federal election? Because if they continue to be divided, it'll just be bad news for the Greens.
Finally, Nick, in 2022, we have two major elections. Well, all elections are major. I shouldn't say that, but Ontario and Quebec. It sounds like we've got a very exciting year ahead of us.
Absolutely. So, for Quebec, that election will be like on or before October. So that'll be in the fall. And then in June, it'll be on or before in Ontario, on or before in June 2nd. Right now the Quebec numbers at least look pretty strong for the premier. It's hard to see him losing unless he really has some type of self-forced error. The Ontario election is going to be interesting, and I think it would be fair to say that we know from the polling that we've seen out there, and that's out there, that the Liberal leader doesn't really have a lot of political coattails right now. Ford is not to be underestimated. He might try to position himself as he'll probably take a page out of the Stephen Harper book, which is not to say that he's perfect, not to say that he's huggable, but to say that he is the best comparative choice. But how's this? In both of those elections, the thing to watch will be the provincial Liberal brands, because right now in Quebec, the provincial Liberal Party is back on its heels. In Ontario, the ballot numbers are competitive with the Conservatives, but the leader is weak. And you know what? Those are two big provincial elections. 2/3 of all the voters in the country will be voting provincially. And I think both the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the New Democrats and the Greens will be looking at those provincial elections and reading entrails as to what they might mean for a federal election in, clutch your chest, 2023.